Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Ken Cheo, and he is the president and owner of our Sales Coach. And he helps business owners make sure that they are getting the most production they can from their salespeople. That way, everyone is a top producer, and the result is continuous growth rates that are much higher than expected. Well, Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, you know, that is what everybody is looking for, is continuous growth and having their salespeople bring in all the business, but it doesn't necessarily happen like that for every company. Sales is definitely one of the driving factors of business growth, but not everybody has it down. So we'll definitely get into that conversation, but give us a little bit more about yourself, Ken, and your background and how you got into sales.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for asking. Actually, I was trained as an engineer. And so all the sales jobs I had really were as a result of me having a mechanical engineering degree. That was a requirement. But, after being an engineer for 5 years, I got a sales job and I never went back. I realized that sales really suit my personality. So I did a variety of things in mostly engineered products in the construction or power generation, some engineering services, and energy conservation, turnkey construction, mostly what I was involved with selling. And then in 2005, my company got sold, was being sold. It was like $80 million business. And I decided I just wanted to buy a business. So I was out looking for companies to buy, and the only thing that really made sense to me was this sales training franchise that I acquired. And I worked that for about 8 years. And then in 2013, I broke off and formed our Sales Coach, that brand.
So sales was definitely your thing. You kind of found something that you really loved, that you were good at. And obviously there is a big problem getting people to actually sell things, which is, like I said, the foundation of everything in business. So with this knowledge that you have now and the experience that you have in sales, what kind of businesses is it that you help?
Well, my ideal client really will have, say, at least 3 salespeople, and they are expected to bring in clients. And they could have a sales manager, or maybe it's one of the owners that's managing them. But they may be growing, but they want to grow a lot faster, or maybe they're flat. Their sales have been flat for some time, or maybe even declining. And as you mentioned before, they don't always get the same kind of consistent results. Some of the markets we're in are manufacturers, community banks, insurance companies or agencies, or technology companies. So they're in complex sales environments. But if they have, let's say they have 12 salespeople, typically they'll have 2 that are killing it. And maybe there's 2 that probably won't be around very long. It's those 8 in the middle is where the real potential is. And the companies they don't know how to help them, or they're not helping them to really know that they're getting the most out of them. And nobody really hires these people expecting mediocre results, but really that's what they get.
Right. So what is the big problem then? Is it training?
Well, the problems, first of all, when I started in sales, I gave you that little background. No one had a computer. Okay. So they would want to meet with salespeople like me. That's how people got their information. They wanted to know, what are their competitors doing? What's new? What's out there? And that's how they wanted to meet with us. Now it's a completely different world. People do their own research, and chances are when they reach out to you, it's on their own agenda, but they've already made decisions about what they want and who they want to get it from. So what happens is the salespeople now are wasting tons of time trying to get meetings. They're doing things like cold calling or going to networking events or going to trade shows or having referral meetings that don't pay off. Okay. And we're all busier now than we were back then. We're a lot busy. We're doing more in less time. And the people that my clients want to meet with, they're too busy to take a cold call or answer a cold email, unless it's really to the point and on something they're working on right now. And even then, they may not respond. And they're not going to the chamber meetings, right? We did a LinkedIn campaign to bank presidents 2 years ago, and we discovered when they were responding was on the weekends and in the evening and on their phones. They're too busy during the day. And no one likes to get cold calls, right? Neil, you're a business owner.
Yeah, right.
Recently from a cold call.
Yeah, it's hang up right away.
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes to get them, but yet, these companies have their salespeople doing that, and they don't like to do it either. Because it's a real time waster. The salespeople, the more time they spend trying to get meetings, the less time they have to be in front of prospects closing deals. The other problem is that sometimes they have seasoned pros who have been in the industry for a long time, and they're just milking their existing customers. So as long as they keep buying every year, they're bringing in business, which is great. But the problem is that they're not bringing in new clients, and unless they're covering their attrition, there's no growth. There's no growth. And, if you're not growing, then you're not really bringing more value in your business. Or the other problem that we find is, they're bringing in a lot of leads. So maybe they have a good marketing system, and they're getting a lot of leads, but somebody really needs to qualify those leads and make sure that they're weeding out the tire kickers or people who aren't ready. So you want your higher price salespeople working higher quality leads and getting meetings with the right people, and minimizing wasted time with people who don't buy or they go buy from someone else.
So, with things like calling on the phone, cold calls, you are getting a person, generally, hopefully you're getting a person rather than one of these automated messages. I can't even understand how they work. They get hung up on so quickly. I guess it's a numbers game for that. But you're saying that the cold calls aren't really working either, as well as kind of networking and developing relationships. What kind of systems are people still using, and what should they be using?
Well, first of all, they have to be working closely with their marketing teams. Okay. And, I listened to some of your previous podcasts, and you've had some great people, really talented people on your show that know how to do digital marketing. And today, that's what people want. We're programmed to go out and do our own research. When you first want to buy something, what do? Right? You go online. We trust Google's going to serve up what we're looking for when we want it. And, so if you're not really helping those marketing people with exactly who you want to meet with, and why are they going to pay attention to you, and when is it that they're going to want to pay attention, then, you run the risk of, if you do get leads, that they're going to be dead ends. And that's the never-ending dichotomy between marketing and sales, is that, hey, these guys are giving us bad leads and they don't trust them. But it's, I tell my clients, it's your own fault, because you're really not helping them with, okay, who do you want to be getting their attention, and what is going to get their attention? And then, I can help them with creative ways, multiple prospecting channels that these higher priced salespeople are working to get people on the phone. And then they start to, develop creative ways to do that based on what we're teaching them and coaching them on. Okay. So they're working multiple channels, and they know their formula, how much activity they need to do, at least initially, and then they're tracking it. They're tracking the right things to know, all right, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, what do they need to change to continue to improve? And the salespeople really need to know, that information is critical to their understanding where they can continue to grow and make more money.
Mm-hmm. So if you are trying to contact the head of a bank or the head of a tech company or something like that, what kind of information is getting their attention, and what does the sales cycle look like on a big sale like that?
Well, you need to understand your audience, right? So there's all, like you mentioned, banks, okay? There's all different sized banks, from Bank of America to, the little bank that has one branch, okay? And so for me, if a bank has like 3 to 10 branches, that's good size for us. Mm-hmm. And they're with the Dodd-Frank Act and coming out of the recession, there are there are onerous demands on them to comply with regulations, and it's very costly for these smaller banks. They need to be bringing in more business, more profitable business to compensate for that. And it's so competitive now that the big banks and the regional banks are coming in and encroaching on their territories. And, so how do I go about getting in front of, the right person? I'll give you an example. So some of the things that we do, we have networking groups we run, we do speaking engagements, we get referrals from centers of influence in our clients, So, I had a workshop I ran on lead generation, and there was somebody from the retail division of this bank that came. Now, I had done some research on banks in my area, and there was this one particular bank that these retail people came from had recently gone public, and they were a small bank. They're a small bank to really be public. When you go public, there's a lot of more pressure on you than just a board of directors to produce. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they had rebranded. So there was a lot of confusion in the marketplace. And so I knew these things about this bank. So I know the kinds of problems they're having, and I know what changes are going on there. So I have things that I know that will get their attention, and I know what's going on, right? Yet, these are just retail people. So I send them away with a homework exercise to get their boss to take my call. Well, I get the boss on the phone. She happened to have somebody in her office at the time and said, call me back at a different time. So through numerous attempts of email and calls, I never got her back on the phone. I said, this is crazy. So I go and I look on LinkedIn to the president and CEO, and I realized there's 28 people that I'm first connections with that are first connections with the CEO and president. So I went to the first one. I called him up. It's my client. My client says, yeah, I know that guy pretty well. You go to church together. But I'm not your guy. Okay, so I go to the next one. President of the local chamber. I call him up. He says, hey, I just had lunch with the guy. He said, I'm going to have lunch with him after the first of the year. Remind me after the first that you want to talk with him. So I did. And now I have a meeting next week. So there's multiple ways that you can leverage what you're doing on a regular basis, relationships you have, or things that you're doing to warm up a call if you don't know anybody who knows them, that work. And when you're doing that, so you have multiple channels in marketing, multiple channels in prospecting, they start to work together to get you results.
Mm-hmm. Ken, talk to me about the expectation of that person that you want to get, maybe a C-level person or the decision maker that you want to get on the phone. What's the expectation from a salesperson when they get the call? Do they expect that this salesperson has done their homework, knows everything about the company, and can show that they have something to offer? Will they give them the time to take the call then, as opposed to, somebody who's calling and really cold calling?
Of course they expect that. And you as a business owner should expect that your salespeople know that, because you only have you have a few seconds to get their attention, right? And so you better have a script and know how to elaborate on that and be flexible on it, so that, number one, whatever you say first has to say, okay, this is interesting, right? I'll give you another few more seconds. And then you better say something that is relevant to them right now, or ask questions is really what you do. You have to ask questions about, what do I expect you're interested in, confirming that. And then that should be enough for you to say, okay, that sounds like it's important enough for us to spend more time together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then either you schedule a more time on the phone or a meeting, depending on the situation. Okay, but you better have that. You have to have that down. And so, it's a combination of really knowing something about that person that you're talking to, something about their company, and really knowing in general with companies like that, what is most likely going to be on their agenda now.
Mm-hmm. So from a marketing perspective, the people that you're looking to talk to, they're obviously, they have a problem, like most businesses do. They have some kind of issue that they're trying to get solved. Where are they looking for the solution? Are they going to Google and looking for answers, or are they going to their network, such as the LinkedIn network, and looking to get somebody who can help them from there?
Yeah, so it really depends. It really depends on who you're targeting, and where do they go for their information. And it could be a combination of things. So you really, again, you need to have multiple channels that you're working that enable that. And then you need to be tracking the right things to really understand what is working and what is not. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, every situation is different depending on what each individual is looking for. So I guess you got to attack it from all angles. Talk to me about some of the misconceptions about sales.
Well, I guess the first misconception really is that if you have people that aren't producing the way you expect, or you think you can get more out of them, that really just training alone will get results. It's typical that somebody will come to me and say, I want you to come in and do a half-day program, or I want you to do a full day or 2 full days, and that they expect that will get results. But research shows us that we'll only remember 50% of a 10-minute speech immediately after we hear it, and then a couple days later you're down to more like 25%. And so with training alone, really we end up with a lot of information and books and recordings that go on a shelf or in a file, but they're really not applied so that you get results. And there's just no way that somebody will know what to do with a full day's worth of information. And so what we do is we drip it over time. The problem is that, our clients might have salespeople that are spread out all over the country or even international. And so that, when they approach a trainer, they're saying, okay, well, when you're getting them all together, we'll do a full day. But, the solution is that, we'll do some ongoing work once they have that full day. But the problem is they don't retain that information. So what we do is a combination of live online, and in person, but we'll only give them like an hour's worth of information at a time with coaching. So we give them more coaching than we give them training. And it's only an hour's worth of information. Without coaching, the training really is not effective.
So it really comes in small bites, and you really put them to work to learn, what they've just been trained on. And is that the best way that you've seen over the years to get the results?
Absolutely. So either we're coaching them along the way, more coaching time than training, or we're training their managers how to coach them along the way. And that's really the only way to really scale the results.
So if you are working with, say, a bank, we've been talking about banks, and you're working with all their salespeople, what would that look like as far as, the period of time that you'd work with them, and, what kind of tasks or systems do you help them set up?
Yeah, so we'll typically work, say, over a 4-month period. I had the senior vice president of a regional bank come to me and say, we want you to come in and do a 4-hour thing. And I said, well, I can do that, but you're not going to get any results. So what we did was we had them, and in this case, it was a little different because there was 104 people. And so we had them doing training on a weekly basis, working together on it in groups. And then I was with them on a monthly basis, working on just application over a 4-month period. But typically I'm with smaller groups, let's say, it could be 4, could be 6. And then we would be together for 2 hours once a week or every other week. And we have an hour of coaching. So everybody talks about what they've accomplished since the last session, and they have a chance to get coached. And so we're working on, in those coaching time, whatever is in front of them now, whatever problems they're having now, not what the topic of the day is. And then we give them an hour of training. And then we usually will give them one-on-one coaching where it's just them. And we're working on really moving the needle or getting them unstuck.
Very good. Now, Ken, there's a lot of different sales companies out there, people that will, come and help you with your sales. What should a business owner, CEO, decision maker be looking for from a sales training company to make sure that they are choosing the right one?
Well, I mean, again, you have to make sure that at the end of the day, they're going to end up with more efficient time being spent, and that it really depends on the problems they're having. So, on a higher level, the problems are either that their salespeople are wasting too much time trying to get meetings with the right people, or they're meeting with a lot of people and not closing enough deals, or a combination. Okay. And so you got to make sure that the program is going to fix whatever those problems are. That's the first thing. The second thing is they need to be tracking the right things, because, almost every time, in fact, every time that I first start working with a client, they're not. Everybody knows if they're bringing in sales, but what they don't know is what's the efficiency leading up to those sales. So they don't necessarily know, okay, well, how, what's their proposal close rate? If I ask them that, can they answer that off the top of their head? Sometimes they can. But then I say, well, how many meetings do they need to have to close a deal? They can't answer that. Or how many contacts does it take for them to get a meeting? And where are their leads coming from primarily? So they don't always have those answers. And the problem is that the CRMs don't readily give you that information. You've got to, customize them so that you get the right data. And so you really need to work with somebody who can help you with knowing what information you need, so that you can get that information on a weekly basis and make adjustments monthly. Because otherwise what ends up happening is, you wait 3, 4, 6 months knowing you're not getting results, and then you just throw your arms up saying, guess I got the wrong person.
Right. And that comes back to, like you were saying, just the analytics and being able to measure something. You can't tell if you are improving unless you are measuring. So that is extremely important. Ken, give us some examples of some companies that you've been working with. What kind of issues did they have when they called you in for help? How were you able to help them? And ultimately, what was the outcome for them?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a client that they sell pumps, and they in Boston, that's where I am. Every building that is more than 3 stories has to have a pump to get the water up, right? So all these buildings that are managed by property management companies, they know these salespeople been around. They know all those people, and they're running around, answering the phone, going to see people they know, and they'd be like, hey, I'm glad you're here. Take a look at this pump, and throwing out a bunch of proposals and closing 25% of them. Ton of wasted time. And then they waste their tech's time in producing those proposals. So we put a stop to that, and we help them to qualify these deals better. They moved up to more like 50% close rate. And instead of growing at like a 15% rate, they were growing at a much higher rate, like 26 to 30%. But the important thing that came out of that is now the salespeople they're freed up on their time, so they can go out and establish new relationships or develop their existing relationships, move up into the decision tree. And instead of just, dealing with one guy involved with one building, they're meeting with people who are involved in multiple buildings who just say, okay, I like what you did over here. Now go look at this place. And then each customer is, they're getting a lot more customer value. They're getting a lot more annual sales from each of the people they're dealing with.
Yeah, very good. Great results right there. And, just concentrating more and, what you're doing, thinking about what you're doing, having quality decisions rather than trying to make it all work with quantity, how many people you're able to contact. Well, Ken, this has been very good, very interesting, eye-opening approach to, what really makes sales work. If somebody wants to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can go to my website. It's www.oursalescoach.com. You can give me a call. My number is 781-930-3220, or send me an email, kcheo@oursalescoach.com.
Excellent stuff, Ken. Well, I really appreciate you being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today. And if anybody else is listening to this, and needs help with their sales, please get in touch with Ken at oursalescoach.com.
Great. Thanks, Neil.
Well, to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com to get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor. go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.